Okay, everyone, welcome back to the Fail Breakdown channel. It's been a couple of days since we've done one of these recaps. It's currently Tuesday, February the 3rd. And so, going to run through all the trades that have triggered over the last couple of days from Sunday to Tuesday. And there's a variety of different setups here and a variety of different lessons. So, some interesting talking points, I think. And as ever, we're trying to relay what we've learned from Adam and his daily newsletter. So as always, check him out. Go and subscribe. Well worth every penny. Okay, let's crack on into it. So I've got on the screen here just kind of the list of trades that we're going to run through as quickly as possible. But from Sunday evening, there was a 69.20 backtest slash micro fail breakdown, maybe ticked beneath the low by a point or something very minor. And so there you would have had to apply the non-acceptance protocol if you wanted to trade that level. And then above that, after that triggered, very shortly after we recovered the 69.40 level. And for me, I traded type 2 acceptance on that level and took a few levels out of that. Then from Monday, we were back at the 69.20 again. Obviously, Sunday evening, we collapsed, lost the 69.20, went down multiple levels, and put in two huge fail breakdowns of both the prior week low from the previous Sunday low, and then the prior day's low from Friday's low. And so, with those powerful fail breakdowns kind of propelling the market up, we had 69.20 trigger in the pre-market. Most of us were probably asleep. And so, what we'll discuss here is what to do if a major fail breakdown triggers overnight, and you find yourself with that active situation coming into the morning, but you're maybe 10 points above where you would have liked to have gone in on that one. And then from today, we'll touch on a loss I took personally at 69.78. We had great acceptance there, but really no trigger. I was maybe too eager to take a trade after perhaps being sidelined for the entirety of Monday. And then the big one was 69.20 that happened late day. So mode 1 red day, pretty common to get one of these late day fail breakdowns triggering in the last half hour or so. I actually missed that one for personal reasons, but it was very clear type 1 acceptance there. I was able to take the next level up at 69.30. We put in a little bit of the second type of acceptance there. So kind of point being, if you miss one, don't worry, just wait for the next setup, follow the process, follow the rules, and there's something just around the corner. Okay, with that, let's drag the chart in. Got the 4 hour on the left, but I'm not going to worry too much about that. Just looking at the 15-minute is the main screen. So, Mike, why don't you kick us off with the Sunday evening? So we've got the 69.20. I think the low was at, what was it, 69.1875, and we just ticked under that to 18.25. So about half a point there.
Yeah, the micro of micro flushes, eh?
Yeah.
Um, Not my favorite to trade those, but again, I try to just, as best to my ability, react and try to not, give too much weight to why price is doing what it's doing. So, in this case, obviously we were watching that area for a nice failed breakdown spot, and what I noticed was very quickly we kind of put in a quick micro flush, essentially a point just kind of below it and then kind of, rebounding right back. So what I noticed immediately was we kind of right away got 5 points above, right? So we're kind of off the bat above that danger zone. So, at that point, I'm just starting to watch. Obviously, you're not going to have a real like acceptance on a flush that tiny. So the only way to really attack that would be through the non-acceptance protocol. So, I gave it a couple minutes to see if it would hold above, that 25 or so. And, actually 2, 3 minutes later, we actually were kind of already all the way up near, 29.30. And, with the push kind of being that momentous, and holding, a few points above the danger zone for a few minutes, I decided to give it a stab. I mean, it wasn't a trade I actually put on full size just because it being a micro sweep and it being the way it kind of formed. It was a little hard for me to justify putting on a full size trade, but I did think, I could put on something. So I did kind of take that 25% size and did get a quick level to level move. And we obviously saw some great follow through there on that trade. So, I think things for me, maybe I could have done better is honestly maybe just taking it full size and not really worrying too much about the way it's set up. But yeah, just essentially just, non-acceptance protocol on that one, micro flush, still holding above and just kind of, take a stab at it. Obviously, I know Sunday evenings are, probably our favorite time to trade. So, that does also add some confluence, especially when we have those nice gap downs.
Yeah, that one caught me. I was really waiting for a deeper flush here of the 20, the 1820 level. And so what I probably from my side probably should have had in my mind there was like, hey, if this doesn't put in a deeper flush, then get ready to trigger that non-acceptance protocol. But it moved so quick for me. I thought by the time I was considering it, we were up above 30 and trucking up to 40 real quick. So I let that one kind of slip away from me, but I know many people in the Discord traded that one pretty well and very nicely. Um, so for me, instead of doing that, I decided to trade or I started stalking the next level up, which was 69.40, which was the low from Friday afternoon, significant low. We bounced 30, 40 points up of, obviously flushed it with that nice scary gap down and flush off the open, pushed up through, bounced back to it. And the nice thing about this type 2 acceptance was it dipped just a point or so beneath it and then started lifting up. And I was waiting for the acceleration here. And actually, it accelerated really quickly. I didn't get a particularly good fill on this. I was up at like 45 by the time I entered. I was waiting to see if the level was going to hold and we were going to get some momentum coming off of it. I think that's the thing I find most difficult with the type 2 acceptance is you're waiting to kind of judge that lifting and that momentum, but sort of by the time I'm able to register that, it's already moved several points away from the level that I really want to be in. But anyway, that was how I traded it. I think Adam traded it somewhat similar. I'm sure he got a better entry than me, but he was trading this 69.40 level. And for me, being a Sunday night, I actually just took 90% off at the next level up, which was right around 56. And then I took a bit more off above 60 because I felt like my entry wasn't particularly good and I wasn't really willing to give all that back. So I just, I didn't really actually leave a runner on that one. I was happy just trimming it and resetting for Monday morning. So that brought me into Monday flat, and we then collapsed from there overnight. So let's just move the chart a little bit. Put in two monster fail breakdowns. We had 68.79 was Sunday's low, and then we had which was it Thursday's low was, I can't remember, there was another low at like 91 I think, or 99. So we put those monster fail breakdowns. I'm not going to go into details of them. I don't actually properly have the levels marked on the chart, but it was a prior day's low and the prior weekly low happened during the overnight session. And so when the majority of us were waking up, we'd actually already put in the 69.20 again here. Nice bit of type 1 acceptance as we push through the level and then holding above the level, chopping around here for a substantial amount of time before then lifting off. So the next question then, when you wake up, and this happened quite a lot recently, where Adam's writing, hey, I woke up and I saw we weren't that far off of such and such level. And I think that works especially well when we've got these powerful fail breakdowns behind us, kind of propelling the market up. And the way he puts it, as long as you think you can get a level to level move out of it, then just hop in. And perhaps what you can do is maybe look for some more microstructure here to trade around. This is a 5-minute chart now, but you see as we first pushed up through the level, we kind of tagged 30, dipped, pushed back up again, So Adam said he got in at 35-ish, so about 15 points above the level. Um, but there was a nice kind of back test of that 30 level and then lift off. So anywhere in that region, targeting I think 44 was the next level up at the time. These levels are from today. So for me, I didn't trade that. I need to kind of try and add this quiver to my bow when we have these powerful failed breakdowns behind us. What were your thoughts on that one?
So I'm usually kind of on the same boat there, in terms of just adding to a failed breakdown when we wake up. The only thing here that personally when I woke up that I didn't love was just the fact that we were essentially 70 something points off the lows.
Mm,
And so that was just something that I wasn't necessarily the biggest fan of. If we were only maybe 20, 30 points off the lows, maybe I'd consider it a lot more, but because we were just 70 points off the lows, I didn't feel too great about just pressing the long. I think the thing that makes it a little interesting here is he kind of had pointed more towards the 6920 failed breakdown, not really worrying about the previous week low failed breakdown as like, kind of think of it as we're only 15 points off of this newer failed breakdown. Don't think of it, we're off 70 points off of the, uh, the lowest failed breakdown. So I think maybe if I thought about it that way, I would have felt better about trying it. But just in the moment for me, I just, 70 points off the lows. I was kind of looking for hopefully a little bit lower to try to enter. But obviously, to both of our disgrace, it kind of just took off and, you were kind of in trend mode the rest of the day, unfortunately. So,
yeah, he actually didn't even mention the prior week low
which is
failed
interesting.
breakdown.
Yeah,
It wasn't in the
interesting.
trade plan, although there was some Twitter communication back and forward about it being a valid trade. I think it was just didn't have space in the newsletter to include it. So he was preferring, or he really just called out the what was it, the prior day's low at the time. Uh, yeah, he was calling out this Thursday low at 68.99 ish. So anyway, yeah. So the other thing I didn't like here is that it just seemed like when I was looking at least, we were just kind of chopping sideways. I was kind of looking in this area, and just seemed like the volatility was pretty low, and so it just made me cautious to enter. And then obviously off the open, we just went, and there was nothing to do. Nothing to do there. Was potential entry up here at 69.78, but again, we're so far off the lows that didn't really interest me. So, all right. So yeah, just need to have a bit more faith, I suppose, when we have these powerful fail breakdowns propelling the market. So let's crack into today then. So um, I took a loss here on the 69.78. Obviously, we started flagging overnight, um, and I thought we might get an entry up here around the 7,000 level. Nothing really triggered there. It was quite choppy, and so it was down to the next one. Interestingly, 69.78 wasn't a failed breakdown level from the newsletter, but he tweeted it out at some point. Look for the reclaim of 78. So added that to the list, and then had really nice acceptance on this trade. And so that's kind of my excuse, I suppose, for taking it on pretty much the first poke through and not giving enough time. So just changing down the time frames here to just look at it on 3 minute. Um, so we had multiple tests of it. Like I think he called out 5 tests, which are fairly straightforward to see. When we first flushed through, down to about 68, returned, and then dipped to 64-ish, returned. I'm not sure if this guy counts, where we only came back up to 72. And then one final one here. So right at this point, I thought things were looking pretty good for a valid entry when we poked through. And I will just show it on the range chart because it comes up a little clearer. Yeah, it's right over here. Let's zoom in a little bit. So yeah, you can see the swings up and down real clear. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And the nice thing about that last one, particularly I thought, was it held above 64 and then lifted up through. So I got in here. In hindsight, I think my mistake was, you know what Adam always says, if you rush, you lose. I just could have given it a bit more time up here. And I didn't really pick up on this at the time, but this final push up through was kind of on declining delta. I know that's not part of Adam's system, but it is something I monitor, although I didn't do a very good job of it on this particular occasion. So how did you see that one? Did you get involved
I
with
read it the
this or?
same way. I read it the same way you did. I mean,
Okay.
I think it has pretty good acceptance at that point with the type one. I think the only thing is, I guess, I mean, he didn't really cover this in the newsletter for him. He kind of just said we kind of just, elevator sold down into 69.49. And I think this is something I've just observed, honestly, just at least with the screen time, at least whatever screen time I have. And I've tried to kind of say this in the Discord as much as I can. Whenever we get these kind of elevators sell down, and potentially, obviously, we don't know if it's going to be a mode one red day or not. But when we do start knifing down, you know, I think one of the things that is important to remember is just really being cognizant of that danger zone, and just not rushing into any long, even if you potentially see a little bit of acceptance at a level. You have to kind of remember that sell algo is on, right? So when that sell algo is on, and we'd kind of triggered that sell algo, couple of ways you can look at it. One, we had lost that shelf we had built out overnight. And then we also had the bull bear line um as well. I believe it was at 69.78 today, right? Is that
Yeah,
is that
so
correct?
so
Yeah.
yeah, it was, and that's what we were bumping back into.
Exactly. So I think, and so essentially at that point when ES has that sell algo on, I think it's important to just really be even more careful versus, if the sell algo isn't on and we're just kind of in an uptrend and putting in a quick failed breakdown, then maybe I think you can kind of get away with just, hey, I see a quick acceptance rejection of type one, type two. I'm just going to kind of buy it. I think you need to be a lot more careful of that when the sell algo is on. And there really is no rush to get in unless you see us, easily get momentum out of that danger zone, or honestly, potentially put in a couple of rejections. And I think when we touch on this 69.20 failed break or this 69.20 reclaim next, it'll kind of make a little bit of sense there because we technically had two rejection spots of type one there before we finally took off versus maybe if that sell algo is not on, you might just see that one rejection and then the second one lifts off. I know some people were in a little bit of drawdown on the 69.20 today because they kind of thought that first rejection would be enough. So that's just, I don't know, some food for thought. I've just, at least with my screen time, I just feel like that's something I've noticed. Um, so, maybe that's something that, keep in mind going forward is, if the sell goes on, maybe wait for a couple of rejections, or at least wait, if we're only going to get one, at least wait for us to clear that danger zone. And, you'll probably be a bit safer taking that long than, potentially just trying to get caught up when you go up by a point or two and now you're just kind of sitting in a bunch of top or drawdown.
Yeah, there's no need to jump in on that first poke through. I will just mention little plug for admins indicator here. That 69.78 level. Um, Maybe if I'd been paying attention to this, I wouldn't have entered the trade. I guess it's not showing it anymore because of the new session has started. But it never triggered an entry up here, um, presumably because it didn't hold above the level for long enough. Um, okay, so let's crack on to 69.20. You've already touched on it a little bit. I missed this one and I traded 69.30. So why don't you take 69.20 and talk us through how that one went for you? It seems relatively straightforward. The only gotcha I think was just watching out for that first poke through. Don't being don't be so eager there,
Yeah.
especially after
Yeah.
a pretty major sell.
Yeah, so fairly straightforward with the first type of acceptance, right? So we had type one at 220. We essentially hit 20. I mean, we hit 18.5, but
Mm-hmm.
it's close enough to the level, so you can count that as
Yeah,
the
super clear.
acceptance happening. Sold back down to 68.97 and returned it back to the level by 315. And then at 315, we got back at 20 and put in another quick dip for about 7, 8 points down to 69.12 and then right back above to 69.20. So at that point I felt, really damn good about it just because again, we'd already put in type one rejection, right? You don't want to, like I just stated before, you don't want to right away at 315 take that long as we go back above 20 just yet because sell algo is still on. So, there's a potential it could reject for a second time. So you want to be cognizant of that. Worst case, right? You can always think of it. If we were just to zoom past divot, you can just take the non-acceptance approach, right? There's no real rush there. If this is really gonna be the bottom, like, it won't matter in the grand scheme of things if you do end up being a couple points higher. So wait for that one last rejection check, and then by 325, I personally took the long, which seems like that was the same time Adam took it above 20 and then just, hit my first target there of 30 and then 35 second target. And now just holding these runners overnight. So pretty straightforward. I think we had some good two types of or two rejections of the type one there. And then, we kind of got that classic end of day short covering after kind of a big red day in ES. So, finally we're able to get a good move into the close. I know pretty much the rest of the day for us was pretty much a wash, nothing really to do.
Mm. Yeah, this is extremely common, isn't it? I'd love to know the stats on it, but when we put in a 50 to 100 point open to close sell, how often do we put in a major fail breakdown within or around the last 30 minutes? Or perhaps even after the session reopens. But I mean, that must be up in the 80% range, I should think. But that's just me pulling numbers out of thin air. Um, Nice thing with this acceptance was, after that first back test from below, and then dip back to around 96, we just started putting in higher lows, higher lows, higher lows as we came back towards the level. So it was pretty straightforward, I think. Yeah, textbook. I actually missed this because I was indisposed and wasn't able to get back on the charts until after we'd reclaimed 69.30. So actually, while I mentioned the word reclaim, I think both you and I were reading this as a level reclaim as opposed to a traditional fail breakdown, but there was a little bit of a shelf here on the way down at 69.20. Perhaps not very significant, but when you couple it with the very significant level at 69.20, reading between the lines on the newsletter tonight, and Adam didn't really specifically state it, but he seemed to imply this was a traditional fail breakdown. Although I must say I was looking at it more as a level reclaim.
Yeah, I
Any
was too.
yeah.
To me, it just seemed pretty clear more for level reclaim. I didn't really see a ton. I know we had a little bit of structure there, but like to me, it seemed pretty minor, just a quick 10-point bounce. So I didn't really view it
Yeah,
as anything too crazy to
too.
quantify as a failed breakdown. But I think the real failed breakdown was there at 69.30. That obviously was a level we had marked, and you end up taking that. We had some really good type two on that. I thought that was probably the real failed breakdown alternative if you wanted to be waiting for that.
Yeah, so that's where I entered. Was able to get back on the charts somewhat after we'd recovered 69.30, and then we dipped back to it, maybe a point beneath it, and then so I got back in, or I got in as we lifted off about 69.32. And then yeah, was able to ride that back up to 40 and got an active runner. Problem for me now is my runner is, my entry for my runner is pretty high up here, so I'm not really expecting to hold that for very long. I'm definitely not giving that a full structural stop. I'll probably just watch it tonight and see. Um, so yeah, I think the main point about the 69.30 is if you miss one, obviously 69.20 was a very nice trade. If you missed that, don't worry. There's one just around the corner. So that's covered a lot. I think there's some interesting lessons there, discussion points. Hope that's helpful. Anyone got any questions? Hit us up in the Discord. We can jump on voice and chat. Other than that, I don't think I have anything else to add. Do you want to close out with any further comments?
Well, I think I'll just close out with like, you know, just a kind of maybe words of encouragement. If anyone else has been having a little tough stretch, I'm in the same boat personally. I'm sure, Tim's also been there too. So, stay with it. I know it's been a little bit of a just challenging couple of sessions here, the past week and a half. And we have that every once in a while. It's not always going to be a smooth ride and road of PA. You're going to kind of go through ups and downs, and that's kind of the journey you're kind of on, right, as a trader. You're going to have good days, you're going to have good weeks where you're going to pretty much feel invincible, like this is too easy, and then you're going to have times where it's going to feel like you can't get anything right. So the biggest thing I've kind of taken away is you just have to really learn how to be resilient. I think resiliency is the best trait you can kind of teach yourself as a trader, and just trying to learn from where you can get better, and just try not to get too down on yourself, right? If you're going through some tough times, try to identify potentially what they may be, and just try to keep getting off. If it knocks you down, try to get up even faster, and try to see what the next challenge is. And that's kind of how over time I think you'll really start building the resiliency to just kind of keep getting better, because again it does take time, and the tough periods are just kind of part of the game.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where the logging and the journaling and the reflecting is so important. I mean, if you're not doing that, then it's going to be difficult to identify your weaknesses, and difficult to improve on them if you don't know what they are. So I know it's hard when you take a loss, to go and log that and journal that, but that's where the lessons are. So, all right, with that, thanks everyone. Sorry that I've missed the last couple of days there, but I think we've covered a lot in this one real quick. So we'll catch you guys in the Discord. Bye for now.